I see myself especially as a kind of consultant partner for the local people director, providing them with the expertise on IT, on operations, processes, setup. And my role is basically with them together define the common business requirements. If they are specific, also specific business requirements, then find ideally a common global solution and also define the benefits we would see when we do this, and then propose a solution and then get the funding by these 70 countries and global lines for it. And then, being really accounting, exactly, make it happen and provide it to our customers. Creating a kind of wow effect for our internal users of success, of the HR platforms. Number one. Number two is, of course, also doing it in a way that we come to a more efficient setup and service delivery. And number three, then, of course, staying fully in line with what the regulator and legislator wants us to be. It will not be the rocket science GenAI at the beginning, but I think it's also this cultural process of getting used to it, of seeing what works and what doesn't, and making it a normal thing and taking it off, kind of also demystifying it to be able then to replace it. So I think
First of all, thank you for listening to our EX Steps podcast, and apologies that I interrupt this episode. I promise I keep it short, but it's quite important and I need your help, please. I've been publishing these podcast conversations for 2 years now, and I see from the statistics that many of you are listening to my podcast on Spotify or Apple, and some of you are watching on YouTube. Thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed the episode so far. I plan on making more episodes, but in order to do so, as I'm a one-man show, I would like to ask for your help, please. It doesn't cost you anything except for maybe 1 minute of your time. Please subscribe to my podcast on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to my YouTube channel. With your subscriptions, I will be able to reach more listeners, which in turn helps me get further interesting guests for you to listen to. So if you will, it's a win-win. Subscribe, and if you want, you can also leave a like or a comment, or tell me if there's anyone you want me to speak to in one of my episodes. Thank you so much for your support, and now let's start the next episode. Who holds a stronger bias, people or AI? And why do we accept different answers to the same question from different human colleagues, but not from GenAI? And are we actually realizing the speed of change that we are undergoing in our HR world currently? There's so many new and influencing factors in the HR and HR tech space currently that we just run with, and because of the speed, we hardly see how quick we are changing our environment. But when we look back in 3 to 5 years, we will probably have a wow effect and have potentially built the HR organization of one, meaning we can segment our employees to deliver personalized services. Welcome to another Employee Experience Devs podcast from the Munich Podcast studio. Employee Experience Devs podcasts are about HR tech, employee experience, shared services, and other interesting topics around HR at the workplace. We continue our most successful season so far from the workbook of an HR leader, where I'm talking to experienced colleagues in our field about their daily working routine and what and how they are going about the various challenges they have to face each day. I'm a tireless believer that we can all be better if we learn from each other, but there are not many opportunities to actually do that. Yes, there are the conferences, but how often can you attend one in a year? Yes, there are peer-to-peer connections, but how many do you manage to keep? I am a firm believer that we can all do a better job if we learn from each other. And so I'm inviting seasoned HR experts from various fields and companies to tell us about their workday and how they go about the challenges of the day. For today's episode, I was speaking with a close colleague of a big insurance company here in Munich, Roland Kern, Chief Operating Officer HR at Allianz Insurance. Roland and I dove deep into the HR structure at Allianz and how we make project success happen in this environment. But we also went very deep into AI, GenAI, and how it will significantly change the way how we can service our employees in the future. But before I talk any further, hear for yourself Roland Kern, COO at Allianz Group HR. Roland, hello. It's so great to see you. I'm really excited to have you today here. We've talked, about many things already, never in a recording, but I always loved our conversations. So thank you for being here. Welcome. How are you?
Very fine. Thanks a lot, Volker, for having me. Really feeling honored, and it's actually for me the first time I'm doing a podcast, so I'm really looking forward for that experience. And thanks for having me.
Don't worry about this. It will be as fun as any of our other conversations. But Roland, I know you very well. My audience doesn't. So let's go there first. Tell us a bit about yourself, Roland. Who is Roland Kern? What is your background? What did you study? And what experience did you have that got you where you are today?
Yeah, I'm actually working since it feels an eternity for Allianz already. So I'm 23 years now with Allianz.
Wow,
Started
amazing.
directly after my studies and worked on global, regional, and local level for Allianz in Germany and abroad. In our core business, which is insurance and investment, product pricing, operations and IT, and of course HR. And since 2 years, I'm globally responsible for the HR, and we call it people and culture, processes, IT, and operations. My background academically, as I said, more than 20 years ago, is that I studied international economics, American literature, American history, and law,
Wow.
and both in the US as well as here in Germany, and also worked shortly for the United Nations in Geneva
I
before.
didn't know that. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. It was actually very close to my course of study, and was for an agency of the United Nations, focusing on creating, so to say, best practice exchanges
Wow.
for triggering trade relations between countries.
Wow. It's a very relevant topic today.
Absolutely. Up to date, thanks to the current discussions, of course, and developments we are seeing globally.
So if you don't enjoy HR anymore, I think your all of your experiences and knowledge will be very happily used somewhere else. But I hope you stay in HR.
Definitely. No plans to change anything.
That's great. Roland, your official title is Chief Operating Officer at Allianz Group HR. That the title of COO in an HR organization is still very rare. Tell us a bit about what this role is about. What's the remit? How would you describe your role?
I think in the end, I want to serve three key stakeholders, right? The first one is, of course, our employees, my customers,
Yeah.
focusing on enhancing and improving the employee experience they have when dealing with HR
Yeah.
and our systems.
Mhm.
The second one, of course, is our shareholders, as we are a profit company, right? And in the end, focusing on efficiency. So how can we do what we do just more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And the third one is, of course, our regulatory exposure that we have. Operating in more than 70 countries, I need to ensure that whatever we do, it is fully in line with compliance and regulatory tasks. So that is what how I do it and why I do it. And
Yeah.
then what I actually do is that I kind of consolidate the demand. So I collect the demand out of
Mhm.
those 70 countries, entities, and global lines, we call them, and I can explain that in more detail later. So I collect this demand, I quantify it and qualify it, and then prioritize it
Mhm.
together with what I would call the business or the HRDs, the people
Mhm.
and culture directors locally. And we also say, what do we expect this impact if we do a change, right? And try to quantify this impact. along KPIs, and then I propose a prioritization and a funding to our global community of people directors.
Yeah.
And then I end up with a prioritized list of
Of
things and
projects.
the
Yeah.
funding, exactly the funding and also the benefits. And then I'm fully accountable and responsible to make sure that that happens within budget, time, quality, and scope. And that we can then, of course, harvest also the benefits that we agreed upon earlier.
That's amazing. So you're basically an internal service provider to all of those 70 different countries. And you're not only providing that service, you're also helping building the case and making it, I believe, as consolidated and global as possible? Or are you also serving, this country needs A, the other country needs B? Or how do you think about one standardized solution versus every country gets its own, different cake?
I see myself especially as a kind of consultant partner
Mm,
for the local people director, providing them with the expertise on IT, on operations, processes, setup,
mhm.
and first understanding her or his requirements,
Yeah,
what do they want to achieve, and
yeah.
what would be the benefits, and then seeing whether we can reach a global solution for it. Why a
Mm,
global solution? Well, in a cloud environment, coming up with a global solution is not only faster and less expensive, it is also usually much more easy to maintain and deliver.
yes, yes.
So therefore, then the discussion is, of course, but I want to have it green, I want to have it yellow or red. But then that is the discussion, okay, but what would be basically the additional costs or challenges we would face if we would customize?
Yeah.
Therefore, it's really about understanding what are those local requirements and are they really driven by regulatory, financial,
Hmm.
or legal means, or by specific business specifics, right? Or
Yeah.
requirements, and then how can we best reflect them?
Fantastic. Roland, let's maybe go a bit into an organizational understanding. So how is HR organized? The different entities, are they separate? Are they uh, standing on their own? And can they say like, hey, I like to work with you, but I don't have to? Or how are you connected? How is your organization connected with all the different HR areas within Allianz?
Allianz globally is organized in a matrix. So
Mhm,
you have, depending on the business model, so we provide various insurance, investment, but also assistance services to our
yeah,
customers globally.
yeah.
And we have so-called what we call global lines. Why
Mhm,
are those lines, or why is this business model called global line? Is because either the customers or their needs are global. So
mhm, mhm,
it could be multinationals and their insurance needs. That's what we call Allianz Commercials.
mhm,
It could be investment solutions. That's
mm,
with our Allianz Global Investors. It could be assistance solutions, which we sell via B2B2C
mhm.
business models. So via, for example, airlines or travel companies.
Yeah, yeah,
So there we have an organization along global lines, what we call them. And so per definition, a global setup.
yeah.
Or we have, you could call it in inverted commas, traditional insurance business.
Mhm,
Like you would know here in Germany, for example, the Allianz Versicherung, Sachversicherung, or
ja,
Allianz Private Krankenversicherung, or Allianz
ja,
Lebensversicherung,
ja.
which operate within one country,
Mhm,
regulated also on a national level.
mhm,
And all of them are using the same global HR tool stack and HR solution. And as I said previously, my role is basically with them together define the common business requirements,
ja,
or if they are specific, also specific business requirements, then find ideally a common global solution, and also
ja,
define the benefits we would see when we do this.
Yeah, yeah.
and then propose a solution, and then get the funding by these 70 countries and global lines for it.
Mhm.
And then, you know, being
Make it
fully
happen.
accounting, exactly, make it happen and provide it to our customers.
Very interesting one. That does not sound the easiest of job, to be
I
honest.
think it's super interesting. I would
It definitely is interesting, but
because
you are having so many different stakeholders. It's not an easy landscape to navigate, because also, it's not only that they are different by nature. Some are global, some are country, but also those countries are across the globe, and by that definition, different cultural backgrounds, different landscape from a regulatory environment. So, wow, that's interesting.
it absolutely is, and the in the end, I think it's a lot about transparency and about
Yeah.
trust in delivery. Of course, you need to earn that with every interaction, right? You need to
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
consistent, and you need to live up to your promises. But I think it's really also in a way helpful because it challenges or forces us constantly to provide the best possible solution. Because otherwise,
Mhm.
I'm not getting the buy-in and the funding. So I think this is in the end really, at least for Allianz Group, a very good model.
Yeah. And talking about that that conversations that you have and around then decision making for it. What I understand is that you are trying to understand the requirements to come up with a solution. And how is that then? Is it that you say, hey, we identified technology A to be the right product for it. This is why, and then it's a yes, maybe, or no? Or is it then also that you have conversations like, uh, we don't like technology A, we want to have a completely different technology? Or who's the owner of the final word in saying, like, if we want to address those requirements you have, that is the technology to use? Is that you, or is it also a democratic decision amongst everyone?
What we try to do is we first try to understand what is the business requirement. What's the
Yeah.
problem we want to solve, and then we open up in a way that usually we do not or we never develop the solutions ourselves because in the end that would not scale, right? And we are also an insurance company, in that case, and not an HR IT
Yes,
company.
exactly.
So that means that at one point of time, we will go to the market with these requirements and see which solution is the best fit.
Yep.
And for that, we together with not with all of the OEs or OEs, we call the operating entities, so the
Mhm.
Allianz entities in around the globe. We ask them who's interested and has time and capabilities to join such a
Mm.
process. And with these colleagues, who then in the end represent our users and are
Mhm,
trusted
mhm.
also by our users, we start defining what would be the requirements and how would we measure whether they,
Yeah.
they are fulfilled, right? And are those, and then you weight them and you come to a decision grid. Of course, we do the same with our implementation partner, Allianz
Mhm, mhm,
Technology, which is our captive for IT. And we also do this with our group IT colleagues
mhm.
who are setting the overarching standards around, IT security, IT architecture,
Yeah.
and also with our group data protection officers. And as we are a German company, also relatively early, we touch base with the Works Council and
Mhm.
relevant topics because in the end, we want
Co-determination.
exactly we want to also have really all perspectives when doing the selection.
Yeah.
So it is a very transparent process, and we offer the participation to all the interested stakeholders, which then not only guarantees very good quality because we are taking into account these different perceptions and views and
Mhm.
also daily experiences, but it also ensures that then when we come to a decision process, we really come with usually a very aligned proposal, taking
Yeah.
into account all the stakeholder views.
Brilliant.
and then usually this is put up for a decision, and
Yeah.
then also granting, in the end, me and my team the authority to further drive the negotiations and the
Yeah.
decisions
Yeah.
with the providers, and then set up an implementation
Yeah.
project and make it happen.
Brilliant. Let me be curious on this one, Roland, because that's a, a conversation I had many times with peers of ours. Um, of course, the ideal scenario for us is that we work with our stakeholders and they come with their requirements. But what often happens, or what I see happen, I'm curious how you see that, is that the stakeholders come and say, like, we need that solution A. We need that solution B. Can you please implement that? Right? Not with the requirements, but already saying exactly which technology they want, without being specific about the requirements. Do you have the situation as well? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yes, of course. And sometimes, indeed, the people bring up the requirements also have already found the best solution, right?
Yes.
But unfortunately, that's not always the case. So, be it from technology requirements,
Mm.
that it doesn't fit to the tool stack, be it from IT security requirements. Sometimes the vendor is also only offering this in a certain jurisdiction or in a certain country scope, right?
Yeah.
So then basically that is always a good starting point, because it also makes a requirement much more tangible than just
Hmm. Hmm.
describable, right?
Hmm.
And then of course we have this discussion with the people bringing it up, to better understand what is the need behind.
Yeah.
And usually, when we then show all the required actions to in the end come to a successful solution,
Yeah.
we get the buy-in that, like I described, we anyway need to look at the market and challenge also the provider in these
Hmm.
different aspects, that we get the buy-in then also from those people originally triggering the request.
Yes. Now, wonderful. Thank you, Roland. I would like to zoom in a bit, right? For what you describe, you need to have an organization ready for that. You can't do this as a one-man band.
Definitely right.
So how is your organization structured to fulfill what you just described? How does it work for you?
We, together with the customers, but also the providers in the end, which is not only, of course, the external providers, but especially also the internal organization
Yeah.
or our captive. We looked at it, and our target architecture we have called the employee master platform,
Mm-hmm.
and that consists of our target architecture stack.
Mm-hmm.
And we have also internally discussed whether we organize ourselves along employee journeys, or
Mm-hmm.
rather around, key core providers.
Yeah.
And in the end, we, for the time being, decided to organize ourselves following our two main core providers. One is
Okay.
SuccessFactors, which we use
Yeah.
as the core HR system. The other one
Yeah.
is this, what we call service delivery technologies, which is not only but mainly ServiceNow.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have then a third team which takes care of the enterprise architecture and the
Mm-hmm.
overall architecture in HR, and the overarching topics. And I have a fourth team focusing on non-IT topics, if you want to put it like
Mm-hmm.
this, on our overarching target operating model, so that the various
Mm.
layers of policies,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
processes, applications, data,
Mm-hmm.
as well as compliance topics like DORA, or in specific in the insurance industry, we had the VAIT, which was set by BaFin
Mm-hmm.
the previous years. So where we basically need to comply and make sure that we comply with the
Yeah.
requirements from the regulators.
Yeah, interesting. So, and then those teams, the success factor teams or the ServiceNow teams, they are accountable for everything that lives in their solution, regardless what it is about, of course, for HR, but they're
Yes,
end to end then accountable for
exactly. And we, of course, you can break that down to what we call squads. So we call this in my team the product owners.
Yeah.
for example, for a module of success factors, and they
Mhm,
work
mhm.
closely in one squad with the Allianz technology colleagues or externals that support us
Yeah.
on then ensuring the definition of the solutioning, and then also the implementation and the putting into production of the solution together with our captive Allianz
Yeah.
technology. So that it's an integrated squad for the delivery.
Very interesting. And Roland, your team, from a skills perspective, are they more HR skilled? Are they more technology skilled? Are they exactly in the middle? What do they bring to the table?
Ideally, both. I mean, they need
Mm.
to understand, and I think that's also what makes our job so interesting, right?
Yeah.
In the end, we need to understand what the business or what HR means when they ask for a solution.
Yeah.
Because we need to understand what is the real trigger for it.
What is the real need? Yeah.
Exactly. What is the real need? And of course, we need to understand the system well enough that we
Mm.
can then actually design a solution and discuss that solution design with the very technical experts. Of
Yeah.
course, having them challenge it and coming to a common technical solution for the business problem that then can be tested and validated by the business.
Yeah. Brilliant. But it's also difficult to get those folks, right?
Absolutely. And I'm really happy and proud of my team that we have such a very good and excellent team here.
And you have some real gems there. Absolutely. No, thank you, Roland. Um, we one of the last meetings you and I spoke about a third kind of technology, right? That you've just implemented from a CRM perspective. How do solutions that are not in those two core elements of success factors or service now get into your team? Are they then a part of, for example, when we talk about a CRM, you potentially have success factors squad for recruiting or for talent acquisition? Is that team then also looking after that, or do you have a separate team taking care of the non-core solutions?
No, this is basically then taken care of in a joint, really cross-functional approach.
Mhm, mhm.
So we are basically then organized, is depending, of course, on the challenge and size and scope of the project.
Yeah.
We are then organizing this with what we call the global business. So my colleagues basically on global level
Yeah.
providing this expertise.
Okay.
Could be recruiting, could be learning,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so making sure that we have a global harmonization of content
yeah,
and
yeah,
business requirements. From my team side, usually then from the captive and from our captive, and also if it's a bigger case of the provider,
yeah, yeah.
with one joint delivery, uh, first design and then delivery team, making sure that we have an overarching approach and can really make sure that we can implement in time a quality and the budget.
Brilliant. Thank you, Roland. I would like to pivot to a topic that you mentioned very early because this is one of my pet peeves. There are two core elements that I'm writing and talking about mostly. It's employee experience and HR technology. We spoke a lot around HR technology already. I think we have a good understanding of how it is organized, how your technology stack looks like. But let me go back to employee experience. I think employee experience is not a new concept anymore. But when I have conversations with our peers, I sense and understand that everyone has a bit of a different understanding or definition of what it means in their specific context. How do you define employee experience at Allianz or in your team?
That is a very good question, and I think in the end it is about how much our colleagues like to use our HR systems, right, and
Yeah.
processes. And what we see is that this, of course, depends a lot on how integrated and easy to use
Hmm, hmm.
courses then related on a technology view, of course, on the user interface, but also of the integration of system,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
seamlessness. of a solution systems are. Because of course you do not want to double key in data, you do not want to have
Yeah.
a rupture in the process, right? And this is I think key, as well as data quality, so that
Yeah.
the quality of the data is really there and consistent.
And how do you measure this, Roland? I mean, what you mentioned last, data quality, you can very objectively measure. It's very easy to assess that. But the experience, the happiness of your colleagues utilizing the software, do you have a measurement for that as well? And if so, how do you go?
We measure with a 5 scale, so basically the 5-star approach, right?
Yes.
And customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
And while this looks rather good, uh,
Good.
I still think that we still need to work on the basics, I would say. So meaning
Mhm,
that
mhm,
really we need to integrate seamlessly our applications. And to be there, that we have really a seamless integration. We still have the payroll systems and time and attendance systems locally.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
And this we want to, in the next step now, harmonize, decommission, and also link directly with success factors, so that we really have one seamless global in the cloud based solution.
Mhm,
Allows us then really for the seamless integration, which
mhm.
then I think is also, if you think about further use of GenAI,
Yes.
enabling really the kind of consumer grade, I would almost call it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experience. And that requires, as I said, this really seamless integration of solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely have to talk a bit about AI, but I want to push it a bit out because but now would be really interesting, Roland. We have think a very good understanding of how you operate, how your structure and technology stack is. But how does your, daily workday look like? What are the regular business topics? How does a day for Roland start and what is happening there? What are the usual topics you get on your plate? Uh, what are the expectations or requests you get from your boss or from your stakeholders? How does a regular day look for you?
I think the I would say regular day or more regular year, right? Because it also is of course triggered by the annual planning process
Yeah.
that then sets the strategic imperatives for the year or for the 3 years. That is our planning cycle.
Mhm.
This is then in the end triggering our strategic objectives that we have for a year, and
Mhm.
what we then agree upon with as I said, our customers and DOEs. Then, of
Mhm.
course, a lot is about following up, making it more tangible, breaking
Yeah.
down strategy into execution, right? And
Yeah.
focusing then that the execution is actually happening
Yeah.
and working, and that all the parties that we need for execution to happen are still on board, right? They have the same perspective
Yeah.
and the same focus. And that is actually something that, like I said earlier, which I think is the most interesting part of my job, because what I always like most is to work with my colleagues, with people, right? Be it
Mhm. Mhm.
customer, be it an external customer of Allianz, a business needing insurance cover, or now in the case of HR, being local entities who
Mhm.
want to improve the service, the HR service delivery
Yeah.
to our employees. And then to have a discussion in the morning with Australia and in the evening with America is really one of the, I think, huge advantages of working in such a global organization.
Indeed, especially being located in Europe. I always when I'm traveling in the different time zones, I always come back to say like, in the middle, which is Europe, you're really the best. Because if you're in the US, it's really, really difficult to bridge that. And if you're in Australia, it's even Australia, I'm always feeling bad for those colleagues because you either need to get up really early, um, but whenever you want to have a true global call, they are really the ones with the worst
Absolutely, that is definitely a geographical advantage we have in Europe.
We do. And so Roland, then your main role and your main activities are around truly managing your stakeholders, making sure you truly understand the requirements and that they stay aligned with what your team is then bringing to the table when they deliver the projects. Am I getting this right?
Absolutely, yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And then when we think about this further, your boss, how is your boss measuring your success? What makes a good year versus a bad year? Is it about just the pure outcomes, or is it also about the how you get to those outcomes? How are you measured?
I think it's a combination of both because you I'm convinced you are not able to deliver the right outcome if you do not invest also in how you do it, right?
Yeah.
In the end, you need to have sustainable business relationships with both the
Mm,
customers as well as the providers. So that only works if you focus as much on the how than on the outcome. In the end, of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
the outcome is the key part, the impact,
Hmm.
right, that we strive for. But to deliver that over a longer period of time only works if you get everyone aligned on it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that also requires, of course, a clear understanding of the strategy, of the importance of also the aligning interests in the end over a longer period. And I think that is key to achieve it.
Talking about aligning interest, if you can share, what are the currently or last year most interesting projects that you did run or are still running? And what were the driving factors behind going after these with priority?
Absolutely. I think then the thing that triggered, I think, almost all of us was, of course, the potential of Gen AI, right? And
Yeah.
how we can make that, usable in a way that we have impact on the three key strategic imperatives,
Mhm.
creating a kind of wow effect for our internal users of success,
Mhm.
of the HR platforms. Number one. Number two is, of course, also doing it in a way that we come to a more efficient setup and service delivery. And number three, then, of course, staying fully in line with what the regulator and legislator wants us to be. But I also, think that to do this over a longer period and make it really sustainable, we need to invest in the basics. So make sure that we
Mhm.
have the right data quality, that we have the right tool stack, that we decommission
Yeah.
things to take out complexity from our global setting,
Yeah.
because that is in the end the then cogwheels, or if you want to put it like this, the petrol in the system,
Yeah.
really the system that will then lead to the superior results and the user experience when implementing Gen AI. So it
Absolutely.
was the combination of both.
Very interesting. And Roland, you have I think you've talked about it earlier, but I want to be specific around Gen AI, right? You said earlier Allianz is not in the business of HR. Allianz is an insurance business. So we take what HR providers are giving to us. We just need to figure out what is the best solution for our case. Do you go similar in Gen AI, or are you having a different approach in Gen AI just because it's so new? So are you developing something within Allianz, or are you saying let's work with our vendors and see what they can bring us?
No, of course, we looked at, we will not be able to develop our own Gen AI model.
Yeah,
So therefore, we looked, of course, with our vendors and compared the solutions available.
yeah,
Ideally, we want to have one access from our employees' standpoint to all the HR knowledge and
yeah.
experience. We, for ourselves, also discussed how do we get a grip on Gen AI, right? And we said
Mm.
the first phase is then what we call informational Gen AI.
Is it?
And the second step would then, of course, be transactional one, and the third
Mm.
step would then be
The
analytical.
agent. Yeah.
And so we looked at it and we checked the market. And we then decided to go with the most advanced
Yeah.
provider at that time, and use, because they didn't offer a fixed product yet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Saying that they offer basically the components,
Yeah.
but not such a off-the-shelf product. We
Yeah.
then decided to pilot in a kind of controlled experiment
Mm-hmm.
based on our knowledge base, this as a
Mm-hmm.
kind of Ask HR prototype,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on the informational GenAI level, I would say, and did so successfully in our biggest market in
Great.
Germany, and
Wow.
are now aiming to roll this out globally in this year.
Amazing. That's great. So I think my next question then is an easy one to answer. When you think about what you hear and what you expect from Gen AI, what's the hype, maybe also the marketing, and what you were able to get, was it for you, or is it for you a discrepancy, or is it like, hey, what we got to is what I have expected? Um, or are you overwhelmed by what you were able to get, or underwhelmed by what you got?
I think first of all, and I would assume that there was the direction of all of us, is when the first time you use, for example, ChatGPT, you
Yeah.
feel really amazed by
Yes.
the capabilities that it
Yeah.
offers, right? And then, of course, you and that is definitely a cultural learning we also had, is if you do a UAT, right, you realize you will never get the same answer twice, right? Why? Because it's Gen AI, right? But this is, if you're talking to a business, especially to, in HR, we have a lot of areas where you need one precise answer, because
Yes. It's black
it's
and white. Yeah.
black and white. It's legally driven. So then of course there is a discussion on how much of variances we are willing to accept and how much are
Mm-hmm.
we not willing to accept. What I think interesting, but that's I think a human thing, is we tolerate more variances if we would talk to, let's say, 10 people, right, giving us one
Yeah.
answer on it. Then we tolerate this kind of variations from one
Yeah.
machine, right? Which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
I think, also interesting, but it's very natural for a
Yeah.
human being, because we expect perfection from a machine, right? And
We do.
which is, I think, fully fair, right? But this, I think, we need to take into account when we look at Gen AI and what we expect it to deliver.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it goes back to what I said earlier. It depends on the machine can only be as good as the data we provide it with, right? So we need to work even further on data quality and
Mm-hmm.
also on the metadata, I would call it, that
Yeah.
we provide with the information.
Yeah.
So, for whom is this information
Yeah.
addressed, right? Who should
Yeah. Yeah.
access it, and in which kind of circumstances there is this information valid?
Absolutely. I think, Roland, you're making a very valid point. I have not looked at it from how you describe it, to say, like, same question, five different HR folks, you get a different answer. Yes, of course you get it, because everyone is different, and we don't accept that from technology, or we need to maybe learn to see it in a similar way. I think it's very similar also when it comes to the whole bias conversation, right? If you think about bias, everyone is biased. Every person has a bias. It's impossible for a human to be not biased, and we are accepting it. But from a technology, from an AI, we we make a very big deal out of it and say, like, it cannot be biased. It should not be biased. It as soon as it's biased, we cannot use it. My view is, I hear you, but a well set up AI solution is less biased and more transparent than a human by default. How do you see that?
No, I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you. And I think this is, but I think it's also part of, what I said before, the kind of cultural adoption or journey that
Yeah,
we as humans are. And it's if you think
yeah,
about it, Gen AI is pretty new still, right?
it
So
is.
also we are still learning, and it has, like every technology, there's advantages and disadvantages. But I think you can make this you just used the example of biases. I think you can make that much more transparent than you will
Mm-hmm.
otherwise do, right? And
Yeah.
you kind of streamline, standardize a process, which is usually then if people are doing it, is less standardized and therefore also less transparent around the biases side. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. I'm fully with you.
Exactly. Now, Roland, if we spin this further, if you spin this further, not only in the Gen AI space, but if you think about your work today further, and maybe this is also your aspiration, but where do you see HR or HR at Allianz in 3 to 5 years from now? What will be different compared to today? What will stay the same? Do you see big changes, a big revolution coming in the HR space, or are we having a slow evolution and it does not look too different between now and 3 to 5 years?
I think both will be the case, and let me explain it. So we will, if we look back, it will be a big change, I think. But
Yeah,
as it happens stepwise, when during the process, we will maybe not realize it, right?
yeah.
As how much change actually is happening, and where do I see the drivers for this big change? I think it's the availability of data.
Mm,
In the end, if we think about skills, if you think about, the possibility we see by combining informations and making them accessible in an ethical way to help fulfill a service delivery,
yeah.
but also customize the service delivery in a much more intuitive way, which in the end
Mm,
I think is the huge potential from HR, from GenAI for HR,
yeah.
is that we are able to use information to better answer to specific needs of a single
Mm,
employee. And there I'm very confident that with the combination of the technology that will emerge in the markets and will be then
mm,
provided by the vendors, if we combine that in a clever way and are able to harvest and leverage the data we have on our employees, of course, very transparently and in close alignment also with the representatives of the employees
yeah,
and
yeah,
within the legal boundaries and regulations, then I think this gives us a potential to bring the employee experience really on a different level.
yeah. HR services targeted to the individual.
Or a segment of one, exactly.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Um, and I think this is we. I had a very good conversation recently with the CEO of a very interesting company that is in the talent marketing space. And I think what we came up there, and I think what you are describing is we can see already in the marketing space, right? Marketing, they have much more funding and budget than we have in HR. So they are always a bit ahead, and they are already in the marketing perspective um, going towards addressing individuals and their specific needs. And when we can learn from that and take that into our technology stack, we can go there as well. Now, having said that, how do you then think is the HR organization in 5 years more human or less human?
I think it will need to be much more human, right?
Mm.
The potential I see here is at the moment, organizations, it's not only HR, but it's also
Yeah.
HR, tend to be, uh, on a day-to-day business, very consumed with more administrative work.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so why? Because the systems, the data, etc., are usually kept in different systems. You have not a
Mm.
seamless integration. Also, you do not have the information. The data is not turned into
Mhm.
information, and it's not available easily. The moment this changes, we can free up capacity of people to really care about the people actually asking for
Yeah,
advice or needing consultancy.
yeah, Yeah.
and services. And therefore, I think it's not only in HR. I expect that to happen across all service or
Yeah.
human-centered and industries.
Yeah.
Well, it is for HR specifically a huge opportunity because it will give us then also the possibility to create much more value directly for our employees.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's this big promise which I see slowly coming into effect of AI and Gen AI to take on more automation of those administrative processes that you described, and then enabling the colleagues in HR to have a much better understanding of who is asking me something, what is the context, uh, what what do we understand from that person, so that we can tailor our language, can tailor our consulting or coaching, for that matter, much better to each individual. I would love us to be there.
I'm sure we can be, so let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. You and I speak in 5 years. Roland, I have to admit, time flies when you have fun. And we are already almost an hour in here. So I want to be very respectful also of your time, and want to come to my last question. Coming back from the future to the today, what do you see today as either your three biggest challenges or the three biggest challenges in HR, and how do you approach them?
I think the first one is linking to what we have just described, right? To make Gen AI experienceable. I was looking for the right English term so
Yeah,
that people can experience it in a very
yeah,
tangible way on a daily basis. So
mm,
that is I think the key focus. It will not be the rocket science Gen AI at the beginning, but
yeah,
I think it's also this cultural process of getting used to it, of seeing what works and what doesn't, and making it a normal thing and taking it off
yeah,
with kind of also demystifying it to be able then to
yeah,
replace it. So I think that is number one. Number two is to prepare for the future, and preparing for the future is very normal things like driving the decommissioning of
mm,
old applications, integrating, like I said, the target stack, bringing that to life, and
yeah,
focusing on data quality.
yeah,
And I think last but not least, really listening to what people actually need and want to solve, and focusing on getting that done, right? And I think if we have this in mind, where we want to be in 5 years,
yeah.
but making sure we get the foundations right, then I think we can really make it happen.
Brilliant. I think, Roland, these are great words to end our conversation for today. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I learned something new about you that I didn't know, and I always like to learn. So thank you for that. Roland, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, Volker. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye, Roland.
Bye bye. Take care.